passage for today is from the book of Luke, chapter 8, verses 40 to 56. Let's read the title all together. Don't be afraid, just believe. Let's read it all together again. Don't be afraid, just believe. There are two events in our today's passage today. These two events are different stories, but they are also connected to each other. After healing the demon-possessed man in Gerasene last week, Jesus returned to Galilee. When Jesus returned, many people welcomed him. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verse 40. Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Many people were waiting for Jesus, but among them, there were two people who were waiting for Jesus the most. One was a man named Jairus. His 12-year-old daughter was about to die. And the other one was a woman with a hemorrhage for 12 years. So let's read Luke chapter 8, verses 41 to 42. Then a man named Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. Jairus was a leader of a synagogue. He went to Jesus, fell at his feet, and begged him to come to his house. The reason why this synagogue leader fell at Jesus' feet was because his one and only 12-year-old daughter was dying. He threw out his pride and knelt down to ask for help from Jesus to heal his sick daughter. So, as you can see, he has a position in the synagogue. He is a leader in the synagogue, but he threw out his pride and knelt at Jesus' feet to ask him to heal his daughter. On the way to Jairus' house, many people gathered around Jesus, and there was a woman with an issue of blood. This woman also waited for Jesus to come back. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verses 43 to 44. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. Hemorrhage is a disease called chronic uterine bleeding. This woman made every effort to cure this disease for a long time. For 12 years, she spent a lot of money but could not cure her disease or her sickness. This hemorrhage is a very fatal disease in interpersonal relationships and community life for Jews. According to the Jewish law, when a woman with an issue of blood touches anything, it will become unclean. That is the law of Jewish. So when that woman for 12 years, she was bleeding, touches everything, that thing will be unclean. If you have bleeding sickness and touch people, they will become unclean. So people have no choice but to avoid her. Even her family avoided her. And all of the people around the town avoided her. This woman had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. Imagine that, 12 years. For 12 years, she cannot talk or she cannot even touch anyone, even her own family, for 12 years. She can't even hug her beloved family, her husband, her daughter, or her children. She cannot even wash and fold her children's clothes. There is nothing she can do for her family. Because once she touches anything, it will become unclean. So she lived this kind of life for 12 years in complete isolation in the community. So can you still remember how the coronavirus attacked us? And then when we were infected, we needed to do quarantine for 14 days at least in the beginning, right? So for 14 days, it was so hard for us. But for her, for 12 years, she was in complete isolation. But there were so many people around Jesus. So she was desperate. Because of that, for 12 years, she couldn't even do anything, talk to her family. She was very desperate. She had the hope that if she touched Jesus' clothes, she will be healed. She think like that. Maybe if I'll touch the end of Jesus' clothes, I will be healed. But there were so many people around Jesus, so she couldn't get closer to Jesus. To come close to Jesus, she must walk through the people and must touch other people, right? She could be in a great trouble by doing that. Once people find out that she is outside of her house, they will criticize her, they will get angry with her, and they might even stone her. But she took courage and walked through the crowd and touched Jesus' clothes, and immediately the flow of her blood stopped. Jesus knew as soon as she touched his clothes, and but he asked. Jesus knew already that that woman touched his clothes, but still he asked. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verses 45 to 46. Who touched me? Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you. But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know that the power has gone out from me. Did Jesus not know who had touched him? Of course, he knew. But why did he ask? It is to get angry at her? No. Jesus looked for her not to rebuke her, not to get angry at her, not to scold her, but Jesus looked for her because he loved her. As Jesus continues to look for the person who touched him, she trembled and confesses before Jesus. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verse 47. Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet in the presence of all the people. She told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. She fell on her face and told everyone why she had touched Jesus. And after touching Jesus, her sickness was immediately healed. In a way, it seems like a shameful scene for this woman, right? It's a shameful scene for this woman. Why? You may think that Jesus was too much. Why? He knew already, right? But he kept on asking, who touched me? Who touched me? But it is not. Jesus did this to let everyone know, or let everyone who gathered around him know that this woman was completely healed of their hemorrhage because of him. For the past 12 years, she had no fellowship. She doesn't have any friends. She couldn't talk with other people, with people in his community or in her community. But since this woman had been fully cured, he had officially asked them to accept her and not avoid her anymore. So that's the reason why he kept on asking about her, because he loved her and he wanted to announce to all of the people around them that this woman is totally and completely healed. Jesus said to this woman that her faith has saved her. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verse 48. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." This woman was healed by her faith. I will repeat it again. This woman was healed by her faith. Why? Now turn your eyes to Jairus. There are two events, right? The first one is this one, the woman with 12 years hemorrhage, and the second one will be about Jairus. Now, Jesus was on his way to the house of Jairus to heal his dying daughter. However, time is delayed because of this woman who touches Jesus' clothes. His heart burns, and the woman who was healed was the one who had a hemorrhage. Jairus is a synagogue leader, right? So he knows the law well. Jesus became unclean until evening because he was touched by an unclean woman. Then, if Jesus comes into his house, then his house will be unclean too. It would be have been so complicated because of that, right? If maybe he might think like this. Jairus was thinking, maybe if Jesus just goes straight to his house, right, and didn't think about this girl, maybe he could have no complication. While Jesus was thinking about this, someone came to his house and told that her daughter is dead. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verse 49. While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. "Your daughter is dead." He said, "Don't bother the teacher anymore. Don't bother Jesus anymore." How would Jairus feel when he heard the news? What do you think? How would he feel? He might feel sad, right? He must be so sad. He could have get angry too, right? To the woman who touched Jesus. And he could even get upset with Jesus also. If only Jesus had gone to his house, straight to his house, or he might think like this: if only Jesus had gone to his house, her daughter would have not died. Jesus might also have thought, now everything is over. Everything is over. He had hope. I want Jesus to heal my daughter, but no more, because my daughter is already dead. Before the daughter was still alive, he had hope. But after she died, he must have felt that there was no hope anymore. But Jesus said to him, who was in sadness, resentment, and frustration. Let's read Luke chapter 8, verse 50. Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just believe, and she will be healed." The sick woman was healed by her own faith, right? A while ago, I told you, and I mentioned it twice, that the sick woman was healed by her own faith. But in the case of Jesus' daughter, the girl was saved through her father's faith. Both receive salvation through faith, right? But the subject of faith is different. One is direct to the person, and the other one as a parent. In most cases, we are saved by our own faith. The girl a while ago, she was saved by her own faith, but this daughter who has died already was saved by her parents' faith. However, in such situation like this, where the sick people cannot have faith themselves, like the case of Jairus' daughter, such as a newborn baby, they don't have faith, right? A person with dementia, or a person in a coma, they can be saved by the faith of others, by the faith of the people who love them. Jesus' daughter was saved through her father's faith. She came back to life. Are there people around you who need God's salvation and Jesus' grace? Are there any people around you who needs God's grace and salvation? Yes, definitely. But cannot have faith on their own like Jairus' daughter? If there are people like that around you, you must first believe and pray to God for them. Through your faith, they will be saved. Do you not have that kind of faith? If so, ask for prayers from other brothers in the faith. By their faith, he will be saved. So, it's like this. Your children, they are still young. They are having hard time to believe. They're still too young to think about faith. What is faith, Mom? What is this, Mom? So you, the parents, will be the one who will pray for them and have faith for them. It's also when you are going through trials and hardship, like the woman, have faith. Your faith will save you. Your faith will get you through that situation. And also, I want to let you see from last week message, the town of Gerasenes pushed Jesus away from that town, right? But this Galilee, the town of Galilee, accepted Jesus, right? Accepted him and wanting him to come near them. I want you to remember that if there are someone who's like Jesus, preaching the gospel, doing their best to share the gospel, do not push them away. Always welcome them with your wide open hands. And also, remember the passage today. Have your faith and believe in Jesus. Let's sing together and pray.